Hey guys, my name is Ryan, and today the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, just submitted her resignation papers to President Trump. So let's just get right into her resignation letter. Dear Mr. President, I am deeply grateful for the trust you placed in me and for the opportunity to lead the office of the Director of National Intelligence for the last year and a half. Unfortunately, I must submit my resignation effective June 30th, 2026. My husband, Abraham, has recently been diagnosed with an extremely rare form of bone cancer. He faces major challenges in the coming weeks and months. At this time, I must step away from public service to be by his side and fully support him through this battle. Abraham has been my rock throughout our 11 years of marriage, standing steadfast through my deployment to East Africa on a joint special operations mission, multiple political campaigns, and now my service in this role. His strength and love have sustained me through every challenge. I cannot in good conscience ask him to face this fight alone while I continue in this demanding and time-consuming position. While we have made significant progress at the ODNI, advancing unprecedented transparency and restoring integrity to the intelligence community, I recognize there is still important work to be done. I am fully committed to ensuring a smooth and thorough transition over the coming weeks so that you and your team experience no disruption in leadership or momentum. Thank you for your understanding during this deeply personal and difficult time for our family. I will remain forever grateful to you and to the American people for the profound honor of serving our nation as DNI. With love and aloha, Tulsi Gabbard. Okay, so that there seems like a straightforward message, a straightforward resignation saying, hey, my husband, he's sick, he's got a very rare cancer, and I need to be with him and with my family to support him because he's always been there to support me on my behalf. So that's what it sounds like to me. It doesn't sound like anything outside of that. It sounds strictly like, hey, I need to take care of my family. I need to take care of my husband who's always been there for me. The media, on the other hand, seems like they're trying to twist things a little bit like they usually do. So now that you heard her resignation letter, the full thing, let's get into what the media has to say about it.
Hi, everybody. I'm Yasmin Vesugian here in New York. We're coming on the air with breaking news. Tulsi Gabbard, Director of National Intelligence, has resigned from her post, telling President Trump today that she is resigning to support her husband during his cancer battle. I want to bring in NBC News Chief White House Correspondent Garrett Haake, who has more reporting on this. Garrett, this is the fourth person to resign within this president's administration. I know we're now getting a glimpse of the letter in which DNI Gabbard actually gave to the president upon her resignation. Walk me through what more we're learning.
Yeah, Yasmin, fourth cabinet official to resign from the president's administration all this year, all interestingly women. That letter that you're showing, I hold a copy of it in my hand, is a letter that the DNI presented to the president just today, I'm told by a senior administration official, thanking the president for the trust he placed in her, for the opportunity to lead the Director of National Intelligence, but saying that she is submitting her resignation effective at the end of June to care for her husband, Abraham, who was recently diagnosed, she says, with an extremely rare form of bone cancer. Her husband had been a presence, a very visible presence alongside her during her own time running for president on the campaign trail and in her public life. Now she says she needs to step back to take care of him. It comes at a very notable time here as the president's been weighing his options about resuming the war with Iran, something that we know Gabbard had spent most of her political career opposing. In her role overseeing all the nation's intelligence agencies, she had, at least on paper, a key role in the decision-making process around the White House. But our reporting has been that she was often sidelined from some of those key moments, particularly around Iran, where her opposition to the conflict was a well-known sort of matter of public fact, Yasmin.
Do we know anything more about the seriousness of this diagnosis, Garrett, and how long they had known about her husband's diagnosis?
We don't know. My colleague Kelly O'Donnell had one source familiar with Gabbard's decision-making who confirmed the diagnosis is thought to be quite serious. But in terms of how long it's been known or what exactly that care plan or prognosis might look like, we don't yet know. We've not also heard from the president on this, who may offer more detail, perhaps as soon as the next couple of minutes as he's making his way up to New York for a political event today.
Garrett, you mentioned it's an interesting time, and I think that's an important note to make because We have talked repeatedly, you and I as well on the air, about how Tulsi Gabbard could have been the next one to leave the administration amidst a string of cabinet officials that I just mentioned who, in fact, had left the administration. Do we have any reporting to indicate that that at all had played into her decision to resign at this time with the diagnosis of her husband with bone cancer?
Nothing beyond what would honestly be pure speculation and Kremlinology, Yasmin, but I think it has been well reported over the last several months that, again, despite the sort of prominence of her role on paper, she was not considered a key decision maker in some of these moments, whether it be around Venezuela or Iran. John Ratcliffe, the CIA director, Marco Rubio in his dual-hatted role as Secretary of State and National Security Advisor, I think we're playing some of the roles that you might be more likely to see the DNI play in a different administration. But whether that was a frustration on her part or led to some disenchantment with the president, I think it's too early to say.
So there you heard it from the media. So although, as you haven't actually heard Trump speaking on this yet, this is an article based on what's been going on here recently with him and Tulsi. So let's read that, shall we? Donald Trump has privately asked cabinet members in recent weeks whether he should replace his Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, venting frustration that she shielded a former deputy who undercut his rationale for war with Iran. According to two people briefed on the discussions, it is not clear that Trump will actually fire Gabbard over the episode. Currently, there is no standout candidate to take the job. The advisors have cautioned that creating a high-profile vacancy before a successor is ready could cause helpful political distractions. But Trump's discussions mark an ominous development for Gabbard, given the president tends to poll his advisors when he starts to seriously consider whether personnel change is necessary. The two people spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss private conversations. So there you have it. Basically, the media is trying to say here that Trump was going to fire her regardless over her beliefs about Iran over there. And so if you remember in the media, someone else resigned a few months ago, Joe Kent. And what did he resign about? He also resigned about a similar thing, apparent to what the media is stating here, about Israel, their stronghold, their demanding over the Iranians. So let's find out a little bit more about that, see how closely related they are. So this is Joe Kent here. All right, so this is his resignation letter. So let's see how similar they sound. President Trump, after much reflection, I have decided to resign from my position as Director of National Counterterrorism Center, effective today. I cannot in good conscience support the ongoing war in Iran. Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation, and it is clear that we started this war due to pressure from Israel and its powerful American lobby. I support the values and the foreign policies that you campaigned on in 2016, 2020, 2024, which you enacted in your first term. Until June of 25, you understood that the wars in the Middle East were a trap that robbed America of the precious lives of our patriots and depleted the wealth and prosperity of our nation. In your first administration, you understood better than any modern president how to decisively apply military power without getting us drawn into never-ending wars. You demonstrated this by killing Qasem Soleimani and by defeating ISIS. Early in this administration, high-ranking Israeli officials and influential members of the American media deployed a misinformation campaign that wholly undermined your America First platform and sowed pro-war sentiments to encourage a war with Iran. This echo chamber we used to deceive you into believing that Iran posed an imminent threat to the United States and that you should strike now. There was no clear path to a swift victory. This was a lie and is the same tactic that Israelis used to draw us into the disastrous Iraq war that cost our nation's lives and thousands of our best men and women. We cannot make this mistake again. As a veteran who deployed to combat 11 times and as a Gold Star husband who lost my beloved wife Shannon in a war manufactured by Israel, I cannot support setting the next generation off to fight and die in a war that serves no benefit to the American people nor justifies the cost of American lives. I pray that you will reflect upon what we are doing in Iran and who we are doing it for. The time for bold action is now. You can reverse course and chart a new path for our nation, or you can allow us to slip further toward decline and chaos. You hold the cards. It was an honor to serve in your administration and to serve our great nation. Okay, so that was Joe Kent's resignation letter, completely different than Tulsi Gabbard's resignation letter. So Joe Kent strictly spoke about the war, said, I don't agree with you and your decision with this war here in Iran, the same as the war with Iraq. Tulsi Gabbard said, hey, this is for my husband, for my family, I need to be home. But like I said, if you remember, Tulsi Gabbard also had a security report saying that Iran holds no terrorist threat to America. Whether you believe that or not, I mean, she is the National Intelligence Director, so there's that. But I believe personally that Iran is a very dangerous country and we should take care of that. But so there you have those two stories. They're both military veterans. They both served in war. So take that for what it is. So let's just do a quick rundown here of Joe Kent and see his military background. Just a quick synopsis here I found in this Special Operations Associations of America page here. SOF background, Special Forces, CIA field operative. So he was in Special Forces, I believe Green Beret, and also CIA, where he lost his wife. They were both combat veterans here. Director of the National Counterterrorism Center in 2025. Former candidate of U.S. House of Representatives, Washington District 3. Bio. Joe Kent is a retired 20-year vet of our nation's special forces in widower, raising his two sons in Yakult, Washington. His first wife, who also served, was killed while fighting ISIS in Syria. 4 years later, he married Heather Kaiser following his military service and worked as a field operative in the CIA. Joe served as a foreign policy advisor and as a project manager for a technology company before retiring on his military pension in 23 to devote himself fully to the campaign. Joe's candidacy for U.S. Congress is focused on restoring common sense Republican values. Joe now serves as the director of the United States National Counterterrorism Center. So obviously he's not serving anymore. He has resigned. But so about Joe Kent, obviously he's in the military. He lost his wife in the military, fighting in Syria, he said. So is it that he maybe just doesn't like war? He doesn't like fighting? He has a chip on his shoulder, maybe, so to speak, about his wife getting killed in action over there in Syria? Is that why he held such a strong stance about it? I mean, he's obviously right to do that, but it sounds like maybe, possibly more than the good of America. Maybe he's thinking more about the stance you take when you join the military. You have a possibility of taking your life, right? Which is why veterans hold such a strong place here in our nation. But so that's all I got. This think about that. It's just interesting. How similarly related do you think Joe Kent and Tulsi Gabbard are? Do you think they have anything to do with one another at all? How they're both resigning? They're in both high political positions in Trump's cabinet. So let me know your thoughts, guys, in the comments below. I'll see you guys in the next one.